The night was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The alien village lay under the silver glow of two moons. The wind had died, the fires had burned low. But from one lonely corner of the village, where the ground was freshly disturbed, there came a sound that did not belong. It was faint at first, like a sigh, then again. A soft cry, muffled, weak, but real. The soil shifted slightly. A tiny hand twitched beneath the dirt, fingers clawing for air. A young alien girl had been buried alive by the one who should have cared for her. Her stepmother. The girl's body trembled under the weight of the earth. Her lungs screamed for breath. The darkness pressed close. She thought this was the end. Her chest rose in painful gasps. But she would not stop fighting. With the last of her fading strength, she cried out again, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. Far away, a human traveler walked along the outer path of the village. He was tired, his boots heavy with dust, his mind on finding a place to rest. He should have ignored the sound. After all, it was late. He was a stranger here, but something inside him stirred. His ears caught the faint cry carried on the still air. He stopped, listening again. The sound came, softer this time, but his heart knew. It was no animal, no trick of the wind. It was a child in pain. His chest tightened, his steps quickened. He moved toward the sound, each crunch of gravel under his boots louder than the last. The ground looked ordinary at first, just loose soil beneath a crooked tree. But then he saw it, a slight shift. The dirt moving as if it was breathing. He froze, his breath caught. The image carved itself into his mind. Earth should not move like that. Not unless something was trapped below. He dropped to his knees, pressing his ear to the ground. His heart pounded. There it was. The muffled cry, desperate, small, so fragile. It could shatter at any moment. He dug without thinking, his hands clawing at the soil, fingernails breaking, skin scraping against sharp stones. The dirt was heavy, but he did not stop. Each handful flung aside. His arms burned, sweat trickled down his face. His breath came in sharp gasps. Still he kept digging, faster, harder, until his fingers struck something soft. A tiny hand, cold as ice, burst through the earth, weak fingers clutching the air. He seized it gently, whispering words he hoped the child would hear. "I'm here, hold on, I won't let you go." He pulled with all his strength, the soil falling away in clumps, and soon her face appeared, pale, lips blue, eyes half closed. The alien girl coughed, dirt spilling from her mouth. Her chest heaved as she gulped precious air. The human lifted her carefully, brushing soil from her fragile body. She was so light, so weak, he feared she would break in his arms, yet she clung to him, as if she had found the last safe place. In the universe, her voice was barely a whisper, trembling like a broken leaf. "Don't leave me," she said. Her words cracked, but they pierced straight into his heart. He looked around the dark village, his jaw tightening. Whoever had done this had meant for her to die, to be forgotten under the soil. But fate had placed him here, and he had chosen to listen. The human wrapped his cloak around her, feeling her shiver against his chest. His eyes scanned the shadows, the huts, the narrow paths. But no one came. No one cared. The village slept, while a child had been left to suffocate alone. The girl tried to speak again, her lips trembling. "She buried me," she whispered, before her strength failed and her head dropped against his chest. His arms tightened around her, rage and sorrow boiling inside him. What kind of world allowed such cruelty? What kind of heart could bury a child alive? The night stretched on, the stars above silent witnesses. The man stood with the child in his arms, feeling the fragile beat of her heart. She was alive, but barely. Her cry had reached him, and now his heart carried the weight of her survival. He would not walk away. Not now, not ever. And so, in the quiet village where no one stirred, where cruelty had tried to silence an innocent life, the dirt had moved, the cry had been heard, and a human heart had answered. The human held the alien girl tightly, her small body trembling against his chest. Her skin was cold, her breath shallow, but she was alive, and that alone gave him strength. He looked around the dark village. The houses built of clay and stone, silent, as if no one inside cared to hear what had happened. His heart burned with questions. Who could bury a child alive? Who could press dirt over a small chest and walk away? He knew the answer already. Her weak words had told him. It was her stepmother, and perhaps the whole village who had allowed it. He walked quickly to the edge of the path, his boots crunching softly on the gravel, every step heavier than the last. He carried her as gently as he could, whispering calm words into her ear. "Stay with me, little one, stay awake. You are safe now." But her eyelids fluttered, her strength draining away. The human thought of the fire he carried in his pack, a small lantern and dried sticks. If he could light a flame, perhaps he could warm her. So he turned toward an old ruin just outside the village walls, stones scattered, broken roof leaning. It was a place no one would come to at night. Inside, he set her down on his cloak, her chest rising and falling like a faint echo. He struck flint against steel, sparks dancing until a small flame caught. Soon the fire grew, warm light pushing away the shadows. He placed his hands near the heat, then gently rubbed warmth into her arms and face. Her lips parted, a faint sound escaped, not words at first, only a trembling hum. But then she whispered again. "Why? Why did you dig me out?" Her voice was weak, but her question carried a weight that struck him deeply. The human knelt close, his eyes steady on hers. "Because I heard you," he said softly. "Because no one deserves to be left in the dirt. Especially not a child." His words were simple, but they seemed to rest in her mind like something she had never heard before. Tears welled in the girl's eyes, shining in the firelight. She had not expected anyone to come. Not a human, not anyone. Her stepmother had told her she was worthless, that she was a burden, that no one would ever want her, and for a long time she had believed it. But this man, this stranger, had proved those words wrong. The fire warmed her, but the fear inside her chest still shook her bones. She tried to sit up, but her body was too weak. So she only looked at him. She said, "If I cried, no one would care," she whispered. The human's jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists. "You cried, and I cared," he answered firmly. "I will always care." The strength in his voice wrapped around her like another blanket, a shield she had never known before. Outside, the night stretched on. The wind stirred again, carrying faint sounds of footsteps. The human's ears sharpened. He turned his head toward the ruin's broken doorway. Shadows moved at the edge of the fire's glow. Someone was there, watching, perhaps following, perhaps searching. The girl noticed too. Her small hand clutched his sleeve, her eyes wide with terror. "It's her," she whispered, her voice breaking. She came to finish it. The human stood, his frame tall in the firelight, his hand going to the knife at his belt. His eyes fixed on the doorway, but the shadow did not enter. It only lingered, then faded into the darkness. Yet the fear remained. He knew they were not safe here. The stepmother, the villagers. They would not forgive him for interfering, saving a life they had chosen to throw away. But he did not care. He had listened to the girl's cry, and that cry had bound him to her. He sat back down beside her, letting the fire glow across her pale face. "Rest now," he told her gently. "You are safe tonight. Tomorrow we will decide where to go." His words were steady, but his mind was restless, for he knew tomorrow would not be easy. The girl closed her eyes slowly, her hand still gripping his sleeve. She did not trust the world, but she trusted him. And for the first time in her short life, she felt a fragile hope. The human kept watch as the night grew darker. The fire crackled. The stars turned across the sky. His thoughts heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. But his heart was clear. He had listened. He had answered. And he would not let her cry fade again. The fire burned low as dawn crept over the horizon. The alien girl stirred beneath the human's cloak, her small body still weak, but alive. Her eyes fluttered open, catching the first light of the day. For a moment, she looked afraid, as if she had woken into another nightmare, but then her gaze found him, the human who had listened. And she breathed a shaky sigh. He offered her water from his flask, lifting her gently so she could sip. She coughed once, then drank slowly, her throat dry from soil and fear. When she finished, she leaned against his chest, her voice small. You stayed, the human nodded, his face calm, though his mind was restless. I said I would, he replied, and I will. His words carried a weight she had never heard before. They were not empty sounds. They were a promise for a long while she was quiet, watching the smoke curl up into the brightening sky. Then she whispered, I should tell you something. Her voice trembled, as if the words themselves carried danger. The human listened closely, his eyes steady on her. Tell me, he said. You are safe with me. She swallowed hard, her hands twisting the edge of the cloak. My stepmother said I was cursed, she whispered. She said my real mother died because of me, and that's why no one wants me. Her words cracked in the air like brittle glass. The human's chest tightened, his fists clenched. He wanted to deny it at once, to shout that it was a lie, but he stayed gentle, his hand brushing dirt from her hair. Children are never curses. He said firmly, the curse is the cruelty of those who bury the innocent. Tears welled in her eyes, but she continued. There is more, she said, lowering her voice. I hear things. I see things sometimes before they happen. I told my stepmother once, and she struck me. She said it proved I was a danger, that the spirits hated me. That's why she wanted me gone. The human studied her face, the fear, the shame she carried like chains, yet beneath it he saw something else. Something fragile but bright. That is no curse, he said softly. That is a gift. One that frightened her because she could not understand it. The girl's lips trembled. She searched his eyes as if hoping for truth. You don't hate me for it? She asked. You don't think I should have stayed under the dirt? His answer was swift, his voice steady. I would dig you out 1,000 times if I had to. He said, your life matters, your voice matters, and as long as I breathe, you will never be left alone again. The words wrapped around her heart, stronger than any shield. She leaned closer, her forehead against his chest, and for the first time she let the tears fall, not hidden, not silenced, but free outside. The morning village stirred. Voices carried faintly on the air. The human knew they would soon realize she was gone, that he had taken her. Whispers would grow into suspicion, suspicion into anger. Yet he did not move. His arms stayed firm around her. The girl whispered again, if they find us, they will punish you too, she said, her voice trembling with guilt. I don't want them to hurt you. He smiled faintly, though his eyes were serious. Let them come, he replied. I have faced worse than angry whispers. He looked down at her. But your secret, your gift, never be ashamed of it. Never let them bury it. Her chest rose with a fragile breath. Her fear did not vanish. But something new began to grow beside it. A small flame of hope as the sun rose higher. Footsteps echoed closer. A pair of shadows passed by the ruin's broken wall. The human stiffened, his hand resting on the hilt of his knife. The girl pressed against him, whispering, it's them. They are searching already. The shadows lingered. voices muttering, but then faded away. For now, they were safe, but both knew it. Would not last. The girl closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her down again. Before sleep took her, she whispered one last secret. "I dreamed of you before," she said softly. "I dreamed a man with human eyes would hear me." Then her head fell gently against his chest, her breath steady. The human stared at her. In silence, the words sinking deep into him. Was it truly a dream, or was her gift more than she knew? Whatever it was, he felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. Heavier than any burden, yet he did not shrink from it. He looked out toward the village, the smoke from morning fires rising. The sound of voices growing stronger. Danger was close, but his resolve was stronger. He had listened, he had answered. And now he carried not just her life, but her secret. The sun climbed higher, its light spilling across the alien village. Smoke curled from chimneys. Voices filled the air as people began their morning tasks. But beneath the ordinary rhythm of the day, whispers began to spread. Hushed tones carrying from one door to another, words that were heavy with suspicion. "They say the human took her," one villager murmured. "The girl who should have been gone, buried, gone forever," another voice, sharp and bitter, replied. "He dug her out. Yes, I saw him carrying her to the ruins. Why would he do that, unless for some dark reason?" Fear and cruelty often walk hand in hand, and in this village, where kindness had long been silenced, suspicion grew quickly. The stepmother fed it with venom, her voice trembling with false sorrow as she said, "He stole her. He means to use her. He is dangerous. He should be cast out, punished." The girl, still weak, heard these whispers as they reached the ruin, each word a knife to her chest. Her eyes filled with fear. "They will come," she whispered to the human. "They will not let us stay." The human sat beside her, his jaw tight, his hand resting near the knife on his belt, his voice calm but firm. "Let them come. I will not give you back to the ones who buried you." The girl clutched the edge of his cloak, her voice breaking. "They will not believe you. They never listen. They only listen to her. My stepmother. Her words are poison. They believe everything she says." The human looked into her frightened eyes, and he understood this was not just a battle of strength, it was a battle of hearts. The villagers were bound by lies, by fear, and by a woman who wanted the child erased. By midday, the whispers had grown louder. Small groups gathered in the square, pointing toward the ruins. Debating in low voices, some were uncertain, some were eager for blame. But all felt the pull of the rumor. One old villager, his back bent with age, shook his head. "I heard the cries too," he said quietly. "I heard them last night, but I did not go. I thought it was the wind. But he went. He dug her out." Do we call such a heart dangerous? Others hushed him. Afraid of the stepmother's anger, fear silenced truth more than chains ever could. And soon the louder voices drowned the old man out. At the ruins, the girl trembled. She could hear the distant noise of gathering feet, the sound of voices rising. "They will come soon," she said again, her voice like a fading candle. The human took her hand. "Steady and warm. Then we will face them," he said simply. No fear in his tone, only resolve. When the first group arrived, they stood at the broken doorway, their eyes wary, their voices sharp, human. "Why do you hide there with her?" one demanded. "Why do you keep what was meant to be buried?" The human stood tall, his frame filling the doorway. The firelight behind him, the girl hidden close to his side. She was not meant to be buried. He said, his voice ringing with steady power, "She was meant to live. And I will not let you silence her." The villagers shifted uneasily. Some muttered agreement, others spat on the ground. The stepmother pushed forward, her face twisted with false grief. "She is cursed," she cried. "She brings misfortune to all." if you keep her alive. The whole village will suffer. You do not know what you protect. Human, you will bring ruin to us all, the girl whimpered, burying her face against the human's cloak, shame and fear tearing at her, but the human bent low and whispered, "Do not listen. Her words are shadows. You are stronger than her lies." Rising again, he faced the crowd. "If there is ruin here, it is not from a child. It is from a heart that could bury one." His voice cut through the murmurs, sharp and unyielding. The stepmother's eyes burned. Her mask of sorrow slipping, she hissed, "You will regret this. Human, you think you can stand against us, but you are alone." The human did not flinch. "Alone, perhaps," he said, "but better to stand alone for truth than with many in a lie." The villagers fell into uneasy silence. Some glared at him, others looked away. The whispers did not end, but they grew more uncertain. Doubt crept into them, and doubt is the first crack in the walls of cruelty. As the crowd pulled back for the moment, the human turned to the girl. Lifting her carefully, "We cannot stay here," he said. "They will come again, stronger. But remember, this your voice is not cursed. It is the reason I found you. It is the reason you live." The girl's eyes, though clouded with fear, shone with something new. A fragile spark. She nodded slowly, her small hand gripping his tightly, and as they left the ruin, walking into the wilderness beyond the village, the whispers followed them, but so did the truth. A truth carried by a human who had listened, and a child who had finally been heard. The night came quickly. Shadows spreading across the land as the human and the alien girl found shelter at the edge of the forest. They had left the village behind, but its whispers followed them in silence. Like ghosts that would not rest, the human built a small fire. Careful to keep the flames low, the girl sat close to him, wrapped in his cloak, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, yet unable to close. Fear lived inside her still, sharp and restless. She spoke in a trembling voice. "They will not stop. She will not stop. My stepmother will come again. She always gets what she wants." The human looked at her and placed a hand on her shoulder. His voice steady. "Let her come. We will endure." The fire cracked softly, its warmth fighting the chill of the night. For a short time, peace seemed possible. The girl leaned against him, her breathing slow, her eyelids lowering. But the human's ears remained sharp. He had learned long ago that quiet nights often hid danger. It began with the faint smell of smoke, not from their fire, but from something stronger, darker. The human's eyes narrowed. He lifted his head, scanning the trees. The glow came next. Flickering red light in the distance, growing brighter, spreading wider. The girl stirred, coughing. "What is that?" she whispered, her voice shaking. The human's face hardened. "They found us," he said, "and they brought fire." Within moments, the forest lit with burning torches. Shadows moved between the trees. Voices rose, harsh and angry. "Burn them out. Burn them both. No more lies, no more curses." The mob had come. Their fear twisted into rage. The girl gripped his arm, her small body trembling. "They will kill us," she cried, her voice broken with terror. The human crouched low beside her, his hand tightening around his knife. "No," he said firmly. "I will not let them touch you." The fire spread faster, flames licking at dry branches. Smoke thickening the air. The human lifted the girl into his arms, shielding her from the embers that fell like red rain. He moved quickly, his steps sure even in the chaos. His body a shield between her and the fire. The villagers closed in, their faces lit by the fire's glow. Twisted by fear and anger, the stepmother stood among them, her voice rising above the crackle of flames. "See, he hides with her. He protects the cursed one. If they live, we all die." Her words poisoned the air, feeding the mob. But the human's voice cut through like steel. You speak of curses, yet you buried a child with your own hands. He shouted, "Tell me, which heart is truly cursed?" The villagers faltered, some lowering their torches, doubt flickering in their eyes, but the stepmother screamed louder. "Do not listen. He lies, he deceives. Kill him before he poisons you too." The mob surged forward. The human stepped back, his grip on the girl firm. He swung his knife once, not to kill, but to warn. The blade caught the firelight. Sharp and unyielding, "You will not take her," he growled, his voice low. Carrying through the smoke, the girl clung to him, burying her face in his chest, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "Please, don't let them bury me again." Tears soaked his cloak. His heart burned with fury and sorrow, stronger than any fire around them. He turned and ran toward the deeper forest. The mob chasing, torches lighting the night. Branches whipped against his face, smoke filled his lungs. But he did not stop. Every step was for her, every breath for her survival. At last, he found a stream, the water cool and rushing. Without hesitation, he stepped into it. The fire could not follow here. The smoke thinned, the girl lifted her head, gasping fresh air, her eyes wide with fear, but also wonder. The mob reached the edge of the stream, their torches hissing as sparks fell into the water. Some shouted, others hesitated. The stepmother glared from the bank, her voice rising one last time. "You cannot keep her, human. She belongs to the ground. She will never escape me." The human's eyes blazed, his voice thundered back. "She belongs to life, not the grave. And as long as I breathe, she will never be yours again." The stream carried their reflections, one of hate, one of love. The villagers wavered. There. Anger cracking, but the stepmother's rage grew stronger. Yet she did not cross. Her torches useless against the water's shield. The human moved deeper into the stream, carrying the girl, his steps slow but unshaken. Behind them, the mob's voices faded, swallowed by the night. Only the hiss of water and the child's uneven breaths remained. The girl looked up at him, her face streaked with ash and tears. "You saved me again," she whispered, her voice fragile yet full of awe. He looked down at her and answered softly, "I will save you as many times as it takes." The fire in the night had been meant to destroy them, but instead it had forged something stronger, a bond no flame could burn away. And as they walked into the darkness, the human knew this was only the beginning. The true danger still lay ahead. But so did the truth. The forest was quiet now. Only the sound of flowing water and rustling leaves remained. The human stepped out of the stream with the girl still in his arms, her small fingers clutching his shirt, her head resting on his shoulder, her body trembling but alive. He found a hollow beneath a large tree, its roots thick and curved like protective arms. He gently laid her down and wrapped her in his cloak, then knelt beside her and built a small fire. Careful and quiet, the flames rose slowly, warm but hidden from distant eyes. The girl stared into the fire, her eyes wide and tired, her voice soft as the wind. "They'll keep coming, won't they?" she asked. Not with panic, but a quiet knowing. The human nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "But so will we." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean we won't stop either," he answered. "You are not meant to be buried, and you were not meant to hide forever. Someday you will stand, and they will listen." His words settled deep inside her. She looked at her own hands, dirty and small. But they had reached out through the dirt, they had clawed for breath, and someone had answered. They rested a little. But the morning brought new footsteps, not a mob this time, but one man, slow and unsure. The old villager who had once heard her cry but stayed silent. He stood at a distance, holding no weapon, just his hat in both hands. The human stood and stepped between him and the girl, his hand resting near his knife, but the old man raised both hands. "I come alone," he said, "and not to harm." The girl sat up slowly, her eyes narrowed with fear and curiosity. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice steadier than before. The old man's eyes filled with sorrow. "Because I heard you that night, and I did nothing," he said. "I was afraid, but now I see. I was more cursed than you, for I let fear silence me." The girl said nothing, her face unreadable. The human watched quietly. Letting her decide, the old man continued, "They are still searching. Your stepmother twists every word, says the human bewitched you, says your voice brings death." He looked down, ashamed. "But I remember the voice of a child, not a curse." The girl's hands curled in her lap, her voice calm but strong. "If I go back, she'll bury me again. Maybe not with dirt, but with lies. And this time, no one will hear me." The old man knelt slowly, his knees shaking. "Then don't go back alone," he said. "Come with him, but come with truth. Let them see you stand. Let them hear your voice, not from a grave, but from the ground above." She turned to the human. Her eyes, asking without words, he met. Her gaze, steady and calm. "It's your choice," he said. "I will follow whatever you decide." Silence fell, deep and heavy. Then she took a deep breath. "I want to go," she said, her voice clear. "Not to go back and be theirs, but to show them I'm not what she said." The human nodded once, proud and protective. The old man bowed his head. "Then I will walk with you," he said, not as a leader, but as one who should have stood sooner. They walked back toward the village that afternoon, slow but steady. The girl in front, not hiding, the human at her side. The old man behind them, whispers rose again. As they entered the edge of the village, voices of surprise, confusion, fear. The villagers gathered quickly, staring in disbelief. The girl was alive, standing, walking freely, and not cursed, not broken. Only small and determined. The stepmother appeared from the crowd. Her face pale, her eyes wide with fury. "No," she spat. "This is trickery. She is cursed. She should not speak." The girl stepped forward, her voice ringing across the square. "You tried to bury me," she said. "You said no one would hear me. But someone did, and now everyone will." Gasps filled the air. Even those who had hated the human stepped back in shock. The stepmother's lips trembled. "You lie," she hissed. "You bring death, even now." The girl turned to the villagers, her voice steady. "If I bring death, then why do I stand here? Why did he save me? Why did your silence almost kill me?" A hush fell, heavy and cold. Then one voice rose, then another, not with hate, but with guilt. "We were wrong." Someone whispered, "We believed the wrong." One, the human, said nothing, letting her light shine. The old man stepped forward. "We let fear make us blind," he said, "but the curse was never hers." The stepmother backed away, her power slipping, her lies breaking. The people turned their eyes from her and toward the child, toward the one they had nearly buried. The girl looked up at the human, her eyes shining with tears. Not of pain, but of release. He smiled gently, his hand resting on her shoulder. In that moment, she was no longer a secret, no longer a buried voice. She had chosen to rise, and the world had no choice but to listen. The village stood in silence, the flames of hate gone, the whispers broken. Only the sound of a child's voice remained, soft, but strong enough to shake the roots of lies. The girl stood in the middle of the square, no longer buried, no longer afraid. The human watched her with quiet pride, his arms crossed, his eyes steady. He had never forced her to speak. He had only stood beside her. Now the whole village looked at her differently. Not as a curse, not as a shadow, but as someone who had returned from the dirt and brought light with her. The stepmother had no more words. Her lips moved, but no sound came. The truth had stolen. Her power, the villagers turned away from her. Some in shame, others in silent anger. They had followed her fear for too long. One by one, people stepped forward. Not all, but enough. An old woman brought bread. A man brought a blanket. Others just stood there. Silent, but their silence no longer dangerous. Now it meant they were listening. Really listening. The girl looked up at the human, her voice quiet. "Is it really over?" she asked, not with doubt, but with tired hope. He knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "The worst part is over," he said, "but the journey is not." She nodded, as if she understood. The pain had not vanished, but it no longer ruled her. For the first time, her past did not decide her future. The elder of the village stepped forward, his eyes filled with regret. "We cannot erase what happened," he said slowly. "But if you choose to stay, this village will be different. Your voice will not be buried again." The girl hesitated, then looked at the human again, her eyes asking the same question she had asked the night he pulled her from the soil well. "You stay with me." He smiled softly. "I will stay. If you want me to," he said, "or we can leave and find a place that has never heard your name. A place with no shadows, only sky," she thought for a long time, her fingers brushing the hem of his coat. Then she turned back to the elder. "Thank you," she said, "but I want to go." The elder nodded slowly, accepting her decision with respect, not anger. "Then go with our blessings," he said, "and may your path be wide and full of sun." The villagers stepped aside, as the girl and the human walked toward the road that led out of the village. The same road he had walked alone just days ago. Now he walked it again, but this time with a child who had once been thrown away. The wind brushed the trees gently, the sky above clear and soft. The girl looked around with wonder. Everything seemed brighter, cleaner, as if the world had waited for her to step into it. She took his hand without speaking, and he held hers with quiet strength. They walked in silence for a while, until she said, "Do you think there are other places like this, where voices are buried?" He nodded. "Many," he said. "But there are also places where voices rise, where people are kind, and where children are never left alone in the dirt." She looked ahead, her eyes curious. "Then maybe we can help those places too. Maybe someday I can dig someone else out, like you did for me." His smile widened, and he looked at her with warmth. "You already have," he said gently. "You pulled me out too. I didn't know I had anything left to give, but you gave me purpose again." The road stretched ahead, long and winding, but they walked it with steady steps. Side by side, one heart that had listened, one voice that had finally been heard, and though the past still whispered, it could no longer bury her. She had risen, and the world would never forget the sound of a child's cry breaking through the dirt, and the human heart that answered it without hesitation.